Boldwood presents What Now? Written by Shari Low and read by Helen McAlpine. The moral right of the author has been asserted. This performance is owned by Boldwood. Prologue, August 2019. Independent Woman, Destiny's Child. There are so many clichés in the story about how this whole thing started that I'm embarrassed to revisit them. Or pure morto, as one of my teenagers would say, right before he calls me a beamer and asks why I can't be the kind of mother who has a mature dignity, cooks edible meals, does Pilates and keeps their disasters private. Thankfully, I suffer from chronic oversharing, so my mortification threshold is low enough for me to just blurt it all out and then pretend I said nothing. I'm a big fan of self-denial, except when it comes to anything involving chocolate, cocktails, or Robert Downey Jr. Cliché number 1. There was alcohol involved. Number 2. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Number 3. We should have known better. And number 4. We shouldn't be allowed to gather without the presence of a responsible adult. The fact that 4 of the people who were present are approaching middle age with the speed of a bullet train rushing towards Menopause Central, and the 5th one has already passed that station, tells you everything you need to know about the maturity levels of my friends. There isn't an ounce of responsibility between us. And yet, should I really be surprised? After all, I have form for being irresponsible and spontaneous in the face of adversity. I'm Carly Cooper, mother of teenagers Mac and Benny, soon-to-be ex-wife of Mark Barrick. Turns out that keeping my own name when we married 20 years ago saved me a whole lot of paperwork then and now. Not that keeping my name was some statement of independence or pessimism. It was just one of those things I never got round to. Too caught up in a whirlwind of fast love, great sex, and transforming just about every other thing about my life. When I married Mark, I gave up a varied career that included everything from managing nightclubs in Hong Kong, Shanghai and Scotland to selling the toilet rolls that took care of corporate bottoms all over the UK. Now, I make my living as a writer, thanks to 2 confessional novels I penned many moons ago. Nipple alert! Please don't judge me for the awful title. It was the 90s, and my publisher wanted something that would stand out. No pun intended. And Sleeping Under a Star. I wrote Nipple Alert in the months after our wedding. It was based on the true story of how I chucked my job, my flat, and my life, and went off to track down 6 blokes I'd almost married in my 20s. Disastrous doesn't even begin to cover it. If you haven't read it, all I'll say here is that the story and my life had a most unexpected ending when I found myself in the arms of Mark Barrick, high school sweetheart and all-round male-type superhero. Or so I thought. But I'll come back to that. My second book, Sleeping Under a Star, told the story of a regular girl who contemplated leaving her husband for an ex-boyfriend who'd become an A-list movie star. You know, just your average, everyday, common-as-chips type tale. And Sam Morton, my real-life movie star ex-boyfriend, I swear I'm not making him up, says he believes me when I say it's not based on him. My face flushed a little when I wrote that last sentence because it's a blatant lie. Sorry. Full disclosure. A few years after I married Mark, I went to live with Sam in LA for a couple of months to try to land a movie deal for the first book. While I was there, some feelings began to bubble under the platonic surface, and I briefly wondered if I'd picked the wrong man. However, Mark swooped back in, and I realised our marriage was worth saving. So I said goodbye to Sam for the 2nd time. Thankfully, he forgave me, and he's been one of my closest friends ever since. For a while, it looked like that trip to LA to flog my novels would lead to a starry screenwriting career, and I'd be best friends with Kate Winslet. But that never happened. Both books did okay, but Danielle Steele wasn't exactly budging up to give me a space on the best-selling author bench. Like so many other 90s writers whose funny, romantic books were labelled as chick lit, my pink-covered flames burned brightly at the turn of the millennium, only for my publisher to chuck me as soon as sales dipped and the next literary trend took over. If my memory serves me right, misery lit became the next big thing. I could have written about the tragic demise of my career as a novelist, but luckily my 2 works of almost fiction led to a couple of side gigs that have put money in the bank for the last 2 decades. First, I landed the dubious honour of penning an unbearably smug, achingly obnoxious weekly parenting column for the lifestyle magazine of a broadsheet newspaper. I hate every word and have to shower after I've written it, but I got over the complete vacuum of integrity by reminding myself that it pays the bills. In real life, I suppress the shallow cow who writes the column by trapping her under the wheels of a fictional £3,000 designer buggy and only bringing her out when she needs to get in 1,000 words of chai drinking, nanny hiring, personal trainer shagging, pretentious yummy-mummy nonsense. I'm not proud. More recently, I've made a living ghostwriting fiction and non-fiction for people who are cashing in on their 15 minutes of fame. I've done 2 novels by former contestants on Love Island, one for a dancer on Strictly Come Dancing, and he's still proclaiming in interviews that he wrote it himself, and a couple of autobiographies for reality TV stars. I'm naturally nosy and happy to exist in the background, so it suits me fine. Lately, however, my own life has been as turbulent as the ones I write about. You see, it's fairly safe to say that I've hit an all-time and quite unexpected low. A flashback to a day almost 2 decades ago ricochets into my head. It was 1 year into the new millennium. I was with my girlfriends Sarah, Kate, Smith, not Winslet, Jess and Carol, the 4 women who have been my pals since primary school, and remarkably, we'd all reached a happy plateau in life. I was 29, at the end of my epic adventure, and I'd found the man of my dreams, the house of my dreams, and I was pretty sure I was in for the life of my dreams. Actually, let me rewind a second and take you back to my thoughts in that very moment 20 years ago. Here's the scene exactly as it played out. We're now coming to the end of the year 2000, and I've been Mrs. Barrick for 6 months. Mark always jokes about 2 things. One is that he spent his life saving my ass, and the other is that he always had money in the bank until he met me. His wedding present to me was to pay off the credit card bills I'd run up trekking the world to find my ex-boyfriends, much to the relief of the financial institutions involved. My present to him was to throw away 3 packets of contraceptive pills, 2 diaphragms, and a family-size box of condoms. You can never be too careful, and start trying for his much-wanted brood. We decided to settle in London, and he transferred to his company's office here, so he's now the hardest working lawyer in London. I don't want to be nauseatingly sentimental, but God, I love him. He's everything. We fit perfectly, and I still can't believe that the right guy for me was there all along, and I didn't see it. Our future kids will have 2 gorgeous cousins to play with, as Carol and my brother Callum are expecting twins next month. Carol is delighted about it now, but it took her 6 months to get over the shock of losing her supermodel figure and her life on the catwalk. She's covered up every mirror in the house. They can't decide on names for the babies. We suggested American and Express. At least then she'll bond with them immediately. Sarah and Nick also got married this year. Sarah is still studying and hopes to be a qualified teacher by next summer. Nick treats her like a princess. They were made for each other. Our Mensa member, Jess, is still working as a researcher in the House of Commons. However, she is now awash with passion for the very journalist who exposed her affair with a married MP to the nation. It brings a whole new meaning to having press contacts. And Kate? Well, Kate's been fired from her job in a desperately trendy salon for threatening a diva client with a hot brush. It's probably for the best. Since Bruce won the award of UK Architect of the Year, she's been frantically busy moving house, hiring nannies and cleaners, shopping and socialising. Now she's the one having her hair done every week. We live next door to each other now, so we see each other every day. Bruce and Mark joke that we should get a bridge built between the two houses to save us getting wet when it rains. We took their idea literally. The builders are coming to give us a quote tomorrow. I sometimes wonder if I made a mistake by chasing my rainbow, but I know I didn't. I found everything I ever wanted. From now on, there'll be no more what-ifs, no more uncertainty. We've all got life sussed out. Sometimes I can't believe we all managed to settle down and sort out our lives, Kate says one Sunday morning as we sit around her kitchen table eating brunch. Especially you, Cooper, she adds, to the amusement of the others. I know, it's miraculous, I tell her, breaking off a chunk of cinnamon bagel from the pile on the plate in front of me. We're like fully formed grown-ups. You know what I was thinking about the other day, though? Carol asks, then waits for an answer, as if we could genuinely read her thoughts. Eventually, she realises that no one is going to take a guess, and she carries on. What will we all be like when we're 50? Because you know what they say, with age comes maturity, and bunions, but we can get them lasered off. There were amused groans all round. I reckon we'll be drama-free and enjoying quiet, peaceful lives, Jess offers. Really? Asks Sarah, one eyebrow raised in cynicism, and I catch her glancing at me. I agree with Jess, I say indignantly. Look, I've already had enough dramas and disasters to last a lifetime. There's no way I'm messing up my life again. The others nod in agreement, and I sit back, satisfied, happy, and positive that from now on I'm in for a smooth ride. But what if I couldn't be more wrong? Dear reader, wrong I certainly was. 20 years later, I have 2 gorgeous teenage sons, and although our friendship group has faced tragedy and heartache, the bonds are unbroken and the love has got us through some dark days. And that's a good thing, because I'm fairly sure that I've just plummeted down a well of despair. You see, at this very moment, I seem to have found myself unemployed, skint, single, I've been publicly shamed, faced national humiliation, my mother has denied knowing me, my kids may never forgive me, and... Your lawyer is here. Did I mention I'm in a holding cell in a police station and in a whole heap of trouble? Well, hello, rock bottom. Let me take you back a few months and tell you how I got here. How it all started. Chapter 1. London, Sunday the 31st of March, 2019. 1. U2 and Mary J. Blige. Mother's Day. My soon-to-be ex-husband really knew how to pick his moments. Almost 8 months after our separation, it was the first time I'd woken on the annual celebration of motherhood without Mark lying next to me. A thought that was blasted out of my head by the sound of my teenagers banging open my bedroom door. There had been a split second of anxiety until I'd ascertained that it wasn't a SWAT team breaking into the wrong house, and that it was in fact my sons, bearing a mug of hot tea and a bacon roll. I pushed myself up, ran my fingers through my short blonde hair, transforming it from loo brush to the more subtle Charlize Theron Fast and Furious 9 bowl cut. Sadly, this is the only thing I have in common with the wealthy, slim, drop-dead gorgeous megastar. "Happy Mother's Day, Ma," Mac cheered, as he dive-bombed the end of my bed, sending a card flying my way like a frisbee, while Benny put the breakfast treat on my bedside table, making sure the mug was positioned on a coaster. He's thoughtful that way. In fact, that whole moment summed up their personalities. At 16, Mac is an adrenaline junkie, wild, driven, and prone to choose whatever is more fun in any given moment, regardless of whether it's a good decision or not. I know that apple fell right under my tree. My sweet, smart Benny, on the other hand, is almost 15 on the outside, but about 42 on the inside. He's comfortable in his own skin, couldn't care less what anyone thinks of him, and fills his low-key life just partaking of the things he loves: reading, movies, sport. When the boys were babies, my Auntie Val, gin drinker, Glasgow dweller and wise oracle of all knowledge, gave me the best nugget of mothering advice I'd ever received. Keep them fed and exhausted. Taking that on board, I encouraged, some may say pushed, but I'm admitting nothing, them both to take up a sport, and thankfully they each found their own thing. Mac's life is basketball, and Benny is our swimming champ. Traipsing to their daily and nightly training session takes up half my waking hours, but the payoff is that they don't have time to loiter outside the local off-licence on a Saturday night, asking passing adults to buy them a bottle of Mad Dog and 6 cans of dragon soup. The endless sport and working out, definitely theirs, not mine, means I need a hazmat suit and a barge pole to tackle the laundry basket, but it's a price worth paying. "That's the worst T-shirt I've ever seen," Mac pointed out with a teasing groan and a woeful shake of his head. I glanced down at my sparkly grey pyjama top that announced, "All's good in the motherhood." He might have had a point, but it was Mother's Day, so I wasn't rising to it. Instead, I took the mug of tea and wedged it between my knees, and then gingerly balanced the bacon roll on my lap, while Benny flopped down on the available bed space not already consumed by Mac's 6'3" frame. How did I get this lucky? I was having one of those "I love my kids more than life" moments. The ones that balance out the pants on the floor and the discovery of a week's worth of manky plates under their bed. My life may have turned out nothing like I'd expected it to, but these boys more than made up for it. Thank you, my lovelies. You two are my very favourite people. They looked chuffed until I added that I've ever pushed out of my birth canal. Benny closed his eyes and shook his head, clearly unwilling to absorb any form of mental image. "I can't believe you remembered it's Mother's Day," I gushed, only for Mac to swipe his phone screen and hold up the text I'd sent them both yesterday. "Tomorrow is Mother's Day. Just saying. Love yous." "Never seen that before in my life," I said innocently. The heat from the mug was radiating through the summer duvet, giving me 3rd-degree burns as I opened the card. My eyes went to the heading. "To a special mum on a special day." Aw, shucks. My tired green peepers moved downwards. "If you could cook and play football, you'd be perfect." My laughter sent the tea sploshing on the white bed linen, but I didn't care. "Right, you have 2 choices," Mac declared, and while he ramped up the tension with a dramatic pause, I was struck with the recurring thought that I've no idea how I managed to make these 2. Mac's black hair and almond-shaped blue eyes are his dad's, and Benny's ash-blonde hair and green eyes are mine, but that's where similarities end. Both of them spend half their lives in the gym, on court or in the pool, so they've both got the kind of athletic frames that I could only acquire if I had them tattooed on my size 14 body. But back to the moment. Choices. Had they both cleared their day to spend it with me? Was I being relieved of all taxi duties for a full 24 hours? Did they have some wonderful surprises up the short sleeves of their muscle-fit T-shirts? Mac enlightened me. "We can stop and pick you up either a Subway or a McDonald's on the way back from the gym." Those were my choices. Subway. McDonald's. Oh, and they came with a standard side helping of guilt I felt every time they had the motivation to work out, only to be reminded that I haven't sweated since I gave birth to Benny. Oh, I said, trying not to let my disappointment show. Okay, so they hadn't actually planned to spend time with me today, but that didn't mean the whole day was a lost cause. Kate is having a Mother's Day barbecue next door at 1 o'clock, and it's an open invitation. All the usual suspects will be there. Maybe after you come back from the gym we could go? Are Charlie and Tony going to be there? Mac asked, and I immediately realised I had played a winner. Charlotte and Antonia are my 18-year-old twin nieces, the darling, gorgeous offspring of my brother Callum and my lifelong pal Carol. Callum, Carol. There are way too many names that begin with Ca in this little trifecta. It would have been much less confusing if Callum had married Kate, Jess or Sarah. Anyway, Charlie and Tony are my son's much-loved cousins. They've been pretty much brought up together, so they're more like brothers and sisters, but closer because they don't live in the same house and fight about who's taking longest in the bathroom in the mornings. I think so, I replied, resigned to the fact that the girls would be the deal sealer, not the fact that my sons wanted to spend the afternoon with a woman who still has their stretch marks. We'll come with you, Mum, Benny said, one of his arms going around my shoulders and giving me a hug. I couldn't resist teasing them. Because you feel like you don't spend enough time with your really cool and trendy mother? That's exactly it, Benny confirmed, in his most certain and definite tone. And you're absolutely lying about that, I said with a grin. Benny's eyes crinkle when he laughs. Completely and utterly. Honestly, they could wreck their rooms, stay out all night and eat the last Kit Kat and I'd still adore them because they make me laugh. Look, I'm your mother. It's my job to be needy and clingy. You can prize me off when you're 40 and I'm ready to let you go. Was it my imagination, or did a look pass between them that didn't quite fit with the light-hearted moment? For a split second I thought about ignoring it, but years of motherhood ninja training kicked in, and I knew further investigation was required. What is it? I asked, eyes narrowing as they went from Benny to Mac and back again. What don't I know about? Nothing, Mac countered with the same innocent shrug he perfected when he was about 5 and going through a phase where he only wanted to be the bad guys from action movies. He made us call him Dr. Doom, and every time our backs were turned he tried to thump his brother with my best table lamp. They both shifted, climbing off the bed, then took it in turns to give me a kiss. Mac didn't meet my eyes as he said, "Right, Mum, we need to go. We'll be back in time for the barbecue." Benny was next. No eye contact there either. "Happy Mother's Day," he said again. "We love you." They were almost at the door. "Freeze," I ordered. I removed the mug from between my scorched knees as I watched their shoulders slump like armed robbers who'd just been apprehended with a bag full of balaclavas. "What's going on?" My voice dipped a few octaves. It was an interrogation technique I'd picked up from Criminal Minds. They looked at each other again, and Mac broke first. "Nothing, Mum, but, Dad called us earlier and he wants you to phone him back." "Why?" I'd only spoken to Mark a few days before. We kept everything painfully calm, mature and polite for the boy's sake. He was great at that. Those were 3 of his main personality traits throughout our whole marriage. Unfortunately, I'm easily excitable, like a giggle, and blurt out everything I think and feel. The writing was on the wall, really. Benny was too slow to get out the door and had to answer. Just ask Dad, Mum." "Love you," he repeated. And they were gone. This couldn't be good. 2 love yous and the avoidance of full disclosure when it came to a call with their father. My mama senses were tingling. They're the same as spider senses, but they can also detect dirty plates under their beds and underlying guilt. I considered delving straight to the root of the issue by calling Mark, but stopped myself. It was Mother's Day. I wasn't going to let anything spoil it. I would finish my tea and bacon roll, perhaps while watching a rerun of a highbrow programme on international criminal justice. In other words, Hawaii Five-0. Then I'd read a few chapters of the latest Dorothy Coomson, then get up and give myself plenty of time to throw on a pair of jeans and a t-shirt for Kate's barbecue, and then... The ringing of my mobile phone interrupted my thoughts. I didn't even look at the screen before picking up because I knew that it would be Kate's daily morning call. "Hello, you've reached Carly Cooper's sex chat line. Press 1 for some heavy breathing, press 2 for some filthy language, and press 3 if it's been so long since you had sex, you can't remember how to do it." The last one would make her laugh, because she'd know it was me projecting my reality. Since my marriage ended, my dating game had been non-existent. My amusement was kneecapped by a very male voice saying, "How about I press 4? For a bloke who probably shouldn't be discussing his sex life with his ex-wife." I choked on my tea. "Bollocks. Sorry, Mark." I thought you were Kate," I spluttered. And it didn't escape me that he'd called me his ex-wife, even though the divorce wasn't technically official yet. We'd started the paperwork, but neither of us were in a rush. It wasn't as if we were running into the arms of someone else. "I guessed that. Sorry to disappoint you," he said, and I detected a tiny hint of tension beneath his usual calm, mature politeness. Mark Barrick, father to my 2 sons, my husband for approximately 19 years, and the man that I'd legally separated from approximately 226 days ago and counting. My brain had gone rogue, and somehow insisted on keeping a running tally, despite my heart's express orders to stop it. "I'm not disappointed." I hoped I'd hidden the sigh from my voice. We'd been some variation of best friends, lovers or partners since I was 14 years old, and now it was like we were in that awkward stage that came after a one-night stand with someone you barely knew. Not that I can remember the last time I was in that situation. I used the bottom of my pyjama top to dry the tea off my blanket as I ploughed on. "I was going to call you. The boys said you were looking for me and they were acting like Crime Watch suspects." "Is everything okay?" Yeah." Oh, sweet Jesus. There was something hesitant in his voice now too. My stomach began to churn. What the hell was going on? Were the boys in trouble? Had one of them done something and was too scared to tell me? Mac was 16. Oh God, had he knocked someone up? How many packets of condoms had I put in his drawer? "I'm too young to be a granny," I blurted. "What?" "Sorry, my imagination is running away with me. Please tell me Mac hasn't got anyone pregnant." His laugh was both a heartwarming relief and a condescending dig. "Not like you to be dramatic." "No, at least not as far as I know. I didn't even know he had a girlfriend." "He doesn't. Just..." I stopped myself before I came out with something that suggested I was neurotic, anxious, or prone to catastrophising. He knew all that already. "It doesn't matter. Anyway, why are you calling me?" "I just wanted to talk to you about summer. We haven't got around to finalising when we'd have the boys, and I just wondered if you had any plans." I hadn't known this man for over half my life without picking up a few things. Other than the fact that he was a workaholic, there was a reason he was a very successful lawyer. He never entered a negotiation without a battle strategy. However, my bacon sandwich was getting cold, so I had no time for playing games. No plans yet. I was thinking I might take them over to see Sam at some point, but I hadn't got any further than that. Sam, Benny's godfather, who just also happened to be my aforementioned ex-boyfriend and a drop-dead gorgeous human being who went on to be a bona fide Hollywood star and GQ magazine's Sexiest Man of the Year 2009. It's a long story, and I promise I'll come back to it later. There was a pause, and I imagined that I could hear Mark's teeth grinding. He knew without a shadow of a doubt that Sam and I had no romantic interest in each other. That ship sailed long ago. But I think the boys' general hero worship of their uber-cool godfather hit him smack bang in the ego.
Okay, it's just that I was thinking I might take them away too.
That would be great, I agreed, surprised but enthusiastic. Mark worked such long hours that Mac and Benny only spent alternate weekends and the occasional midweek night with him, so a boys' week at the beach or city hopping around Europe would be great for them, a real bonding experience, and one that they hadn't had before now.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be the first summer since... you know.
He didn't seem to be able to say, since we split up, but I let it go as he went on.
So I thought we could do something special.
Ooh, maybe catch some big sports event? Perhaps an F1 race somewhere. I didn't get the chance to question him as he cleared his throat and continued.
And I spoke to the boys about it, and we thought we'd hire an RV and spend a month touring the east coast of the States.
I had to rewind it at least twice to make sure I'd heard correctly, and even then I had to check I wasn't mistaken. A month? You want to take the boys away for a month? Was this an April Fool's joke? No, that was tomorrow. Mark was way too grown up and sensible to pull a prank on the wrong day, or any day for that matter.
Yes. Is that a problem?
There was a hint of challenge in there, and I had to clench my jaw to stop myself rising to it with full force sarcasm along the lines of, "No, of course not. Why should it be a problem? It's not as if I begged you for years to take more than a week off work. And when you did grudgingly agree to a short break, it's not as if you'd then spend every day on the phone and trying to get Wi-Fi so you could answer your emails. It's not as if one of the very real reasons that I called time in our marriage was because I couldn't bear to carry on living a life in which I always felt the kids and I were below work on your priority list. It's not as if you promised me 100 times that you'd show more interest in us and then immediately reverted back to showing zero interest. And it's definitely not as if I eventually gave up trying to make it work. We finally separated, and you've suddenly decided you've got positively oodles of free time and you're father of the bloody year." Nope, I didn't say any of that, because I understood now why the boys were being shifty. They knew this would blindside me, and they didn't know how I'd react. Despite Mark's initial objections to the separation, we'd both agreed to be amicable, to go with the line that we'd just outgrown each other and parted as friends. However, this morning I could sense that they felt stuck in the middle, and that was somewhere I didn't want them to be. I forced myself to reply in a non-fricking furious tone. "No, it's not a problem. I just wish you discussed it with me before talking to the boys." A sigh at his end.
God, I can't win. Look, I know I haven't been around as much as I should have, but I'm changing that now. And it just came up in conversation with them.
And I take it they want to go? I swear my ovaries clenched. Say no. Please say they don't want to leave me for a whole month, that they were positively inconsolable at the very thought of it.
They do.
Damn it. Then it's fine with me, I blurted.
Are you sure?
I could make out surprise, relief and a tinge of disbelief.
"Absolutely," I assured him, trying so hard to sound sunny and enthusiastic that I was now using the same voice as the actors in washing powder commercials. "I think it's a smashing idea, and I'm all for it."
Chapter 2. 15 minutes later, Kate's house next door. Not ready to make nice the chicks. "And are you all for it?" Kate asked, her jaw almost hitting the hot tray of stuffed peppers she was clutching between her oven gloves. Apart from the distraught and needy pal, this was Kate's idea of a perfect Mother's Day, cooking and baking up a feast for everyone she loves. The best thing about living next door to your best friend was that you could slip through the gate connecting your gardens and be in their kitchen in seconds. Right now, I'm not sure Kate felt the same. She went through far less biscuits when we lived at opposite ends of the country. The defection of most of our high school girl gang from Glasgow to London had begun back in the late 80s. At 18, Carol had been the first to go in search of fame, fortune, or at least enough modelling gigs to keep a roof over her beautiful head and maintain an endless supply of black coffee and Marlborough Lights. Jess had followed at 21, when she left uni with a degree in politics and came south to fulfil her dream of working in the epicentre of government. Back then, when we were all catching lusty feelings for Brad Pitt, and we were yet to discover that Clooney bloke in ER, Jess could come over all sexually giddy at the sight of a well-written manifesto. Kate had joined the other two when she landed a junior position in a swanky London salon. The only one whose path didn't bring her down the M6 was Sarah, who'd lived in Scotland until she moved to the USA in her 30s. I'd been the last to make the move, finally settling here when I decided my world travels were over and it was time to grow up and put some roots down. My brother, Callum, was already living just off the King's Road, my brother Michael visited often, and my parents stayed back in Scotland, which suited us fine because they had pretty much zero interest in what their offspring were doing anyway. Years later, Mark had no objection to making it our home after we married. His parents had moved abroad, so he had no family ties to Glasgow. We'd bought the house next door to Kate, and strictly speaking, that's where I'd lived ever since. But I spent so much time in Kate's kitchen that she could probably justify charging me rent. I lifted my head off the battered but beautiful oak table that had been the centre of the room for 2 decades, and realised she was still waiting for an answer. "Of course not. 19 years, Kate. 19 years, and he has not arranged or organised a single thing in our lives." Kate interrupted me. "Are you about to go full-scale martyr and rhyme off everything he's ever done to upset you? Because I'm not sure how long I can hold this tree for." "I am," I confirmed. "OK. Give me a sec to get organised, so that I can give your rant my undivided attention." In the time it took her to put the tray on the drainer, grab a mug, pour a coffee from the pot and join me, I fired off a text to Sarah's daughter, Hannah. "Hey lovely, just thinking about you. All good? Sending hugs and big love." I didn't expect a reply. It was about 6 in the morning in New York. Ping. "All good, Aunt Carly. Miss you all. Kiss kiss." Since Sarah left us, I texted Hannah and her brother Ryan at least once a week, and called Hannah once a month or so. We all did. It was a thin line. We didn't want to bombard them with calls that would inevitably remind them of what they'd lost, but at the same time we wanted them to know we cared, and that they had 4 non-biological aunts who loved them. It was the least Sarah would expect, and the least I could do. I owed her. Kate plonked down across from me. "OK, I'm all yours until I need to take the chocolate sponge out of the oven. You've got..." She consulted the big brass clock on the kitchen wall. 12 minutes. Go." I didn't waste a second of my allotted time. All those years I begged him to take time off. He never planned a holiday or a trip or even a day out. I'm not saying he wasn't a good dad because I know how much he loves the boys. But you know he's never been the proactive type, so yes, I'm struggling with the notion that he's suddenly turned into Thomas bloody Cook. And maybe struggling with the thought of not being involved in this too? She probed gently. There is a reason you should never discuss your problems with the person who's been your friend since you were 5. They know you far too well and can cut through any narrative and get to the root of your feelings before you even understand them yourself. Also, when they're sitting there looking like a petite, chestnut-haired Nigella-esque goddess in a pretty sundress, having cooked for and rustled up a party for 20 without even breaking sweat, they can make you feel wholly inadequate. But that's beside the point right now. Well, I began weakly. It's just that... Oh, bugger, you're right. I took a sip of coffee from the bright blue mug with my initial on it. Kate had bought one for each of us, Sarah, Jess and Carol too, about 10 years ago on a girls' weekend to Dublin. My throat constricted at the thought of Sarah's mug, sitting there for so long unused. I swallowed. Now wasn't the time to go there. Domestic disagreements with my soon-to-be ex were easier to bear. I forced myself to focus on the present. My mug had definitely faded over the last year with excessive use. Illness, divorce, loss, and way too much emotional trauma had pretty much made me a permanent resident at Kate's kitchen table over the last 12 months. A month touring the States is the kind of thing I used to beg him to do, and he'd always say it was impossible to take that much time off. How come he can do it now? And you feel it shows how unimportant you were to him? That he couldn't do that for you, yet now you split, he's becoming the person you wanted him to be? She was doing that whole spooky insight thing again. In a minute she'd tell me I was thinking about putting my wedding dress on eBay and that I'd bought an abdominal crunching machine thingy I would never use off a late-night infomercial last night, both of which were sadly true. I nodded. Am I pathetic? Yes. She reached over and took my hand. But it's also totally understandable that it stings. Thing is, maybe it's taken everything that's happened to make Mark realise what's important and to make the changes in his life that he should have made long ago. I let that one hang for a minute. This wasn't the moment to rehash all the reasons that Mark and I are no longer together, but Kate's analysis of one of our issues was painfully accurate. Her eyes flicked to the clock again, and I knew that she was mentally counting down the chocolate sponge deadline, but she didn't rush me. Instead, she put her hands on mine. So what are you going to do about it? I thought about it. Slash his tyres and put fish under his car seat? That could work. Kate shrugged. I've got a couple of cans of tuna in the cupboard. I was going to have them with a baked potato, but I'll make the sacrifice. That's devotion, I said, laughing for the first time since I'd burst in the back door. It was what I needed to put it into perspective, at least for now. Or I could get behind it, encourage them to have a great time and wave them off with a smile on my face.
Smiling gives you wrinkles. I'd avoid it at all costs, deadpanned a new addition to the room, and she should know. My sister-in-law Carol, all 5'10", size 8, willowy Cindy Crawford look-alike, wafted in. Years on catwalks meant that while us mere mortals trudged or shuffled, she glided, head held high, everywhere she went. It would be easy to hate her, but she was one of my original lifelong gang, and we were friends for decades before she fell in love with my brother and married him. Did I mention that at the time he was also travelling the world, making bucket loads on the catwalks too? It was a modern-day fairy tale. Gorgeous woman meets gorgeous man. They marry and have gorgeous kids, and now earn a living as social media influencers,
getting paid thousands to post pictures of their fave brand of washing powder. A tad misleading, since they have a lovely woman called Bella who comes 3 times a week to do their cleaning and laundry. I should deeply resent her for being so perfect, but on the inside she has just as many hang-ups, worries and flaws as the rest of us, so I love her madly. She put a couple of bags on Kate's gleaming white granite countertops, slung her white leather biker's jacket on top, then took her mug out of the cupboard. "Thou'st shall treat each other's homes as our own" was definitely one of the 10 commandments of our friendship. It sat between "thou'st must always listen to each other's worries, even if they're irrational," and "thou must not covet thy neighbour's shoes, but if thou does, then thou must return them ASAP." Kate gestured to the section of her kitchen designated for the coffee station. One of the benefits of being married to an architect was that her kitchen, with the exception of the beloved old centre table that she wouldn't part with, was constantly updated to accommodate all the latest trends. There was a juice bar there for a while, but we told her we were disowning her if she didn't swap it back for coffee, tea and a large tin of chocolate hobnobs. "There's fresh coffee in the pot." Carol was way ahead of her.
"Nope, I'm in need of something a little stronger," she said, reaching into one of the bags and pulling out a bottle of champagne, which she popped like a pro and poured straight into her mug. "Help yourselves."
I might just do that. Day drinking at 11 a.m. was something I could totally get on board with today. Mary Berry got up to attend to the chocolate cake, while Carol took a sip of her plonk, then slid into the chair next to me. I realised we were both wearing the same outfit, white jumpers, ripped faded jeans. However, with my size 14 figure and her size 8, we looked like a before and after poster advertising weight loss shakes.
"Wow, who's rained on your pavlova?"
she asked, meeting my gaze for the first time. Carol's brain is like a war zone where metaphors, common sayings and phrases battle for supremacy, and then stagger out wounded and confused, but her meaning was generally clear enough. Mark. He wants to take the boys away for a month in the summer and go touring around America. Carol went straight to my side of the marital woe, making her the instant winner of the Sister-in-Law of the Year award.
"You're joking. I thought he was too busy."
I put my hand up to stop her. "Don't proceed unless you want to see me cry. Anyway, why are you on the booze at this time in the morning? If you could make it something awful that'll take my mind off my problems, I'd appreciate it."
"Mother's Day," she replied, as if that explained it. "I had to get up at 6 a.m. to get the kitchen looking perfect, then drag everyone out of bed at 8, spend an hour making us all look like we rolled out of bed gorgeous, in colour-coordinated pyjamas, all so we could get some Instapics of the girls pretending to give me some inedible bloody chocolates that taste like feet. It was a good earner, but Callum was pissed off. Charlotte says she's moving out, and I've no idea what Tony thinks because she hasn't spoken to me for a week. As soon as I'd posted the pic, they all went back to bed and left me sitting there like a sado. Not even a happy Mother's Day between the lot of them. Parenting teenagers is hardcore. Tell me again how much of a nightmare we were when we were 19.
Complete nightmare, I said, trying to reassure her. Actually, I wasn't lying. You'd run off to London and were shacked up with someone double your age, and I was in Amsterdam working in a club in the red light district. And we did it all with no mobile phones, no internet, no common sense, and no way for our parents to know what we were up to. Carol took another sip as she pondered that, nostalgia making the corners of her perfect pout turn up.
We were happy though. God, I miss the 90s.
I think you'll find that was the end of the 80s, Kate pointed out, shaking a perfect chocolate sponge onto a cooling tray. Carol shook her head.
Sorry, you've clearly got your dates mixed up. I'm in my late 30s. God bless Botox.
Since her 20s, Carol had been getting every age-defying treatment, freezers, fillers, peelers, lifters, often before they even came on the market, and there was no doubt they were working for her. Never too much, though, just enough that they did the job but still looked natural. They'd wiped at least 10 years off her, 15 in a dim light. Meanwhile, I'd neglected myself to the point where my roots were like zebra stripes, and my cleanse, tone, moisturise routine had long been replaced with a quick slap with a baby wipe. Carol deflected back onto me.
"What are you going to do about Mark and the boys, then?"
"I'm going to be extremely mature."
"That'll be a stretch,"
she interjected. I ignored her. "And I'm going to smile and wave them off. Then I'll either cry or comfort eat my way out of my jeans. I haven't decided yet." Carol sighed and turned to Kate.
"Are you going to see it, or am I?"
Over at the kitchen island, Kate flushed, shoved a wooden spoon in a bowl and started furiously stirring. "I'm making icing. Can't do two things at once. I'll leave it to you." My gaze went from one to the other. "Say what? What are you talking about?" Carol put her mug down.
"I'm saying this because I love you, and I want you to be happy."
In my mind, I got ready to retract the Sister-in-Law of the Year award. To the outside world, Carol would have my back until the death, but in our little circle of trust, she was bold, blunt, and as she would say, the type of person to just rip that bandage right off. I mentally donned my bulletproof bra for the assault. She didn't miss.
"You need to give yourself a shake and find the old Carly Cooper and drag her back into your life."
"What do you mean, the old Carly Cooper? I'm still the same person I always was." I could feel my face flush with a lie, even as I said it.
"Am I still flying solo here?"
Carol asked Kate, who murmured, "You're married to her brother. It'll be harder for her to take a hit out on you." Then went back to focusing 100% on her bowl. "You know that thing where the hairs on the back of your neck stand up because you realise that people have been discussing you and you knew nothing about it? Well, that. My friends clearly had an issue with me, and I'd been blissfully unaware." Before I could swallow my outrage and delve deeper, the back door opened again and Jess came in, sporting hair like a matted red setter and huge sunglasses. Kate stopped stirring. "Wow, rough night last night? I was about to send out a search party when you hadn't texted that you were home safe by 3 a.m. You're lucky you answered my call or we'd have broken down your door."
"Sorry, I was otherwise engaged and lost track of time,"
Jess admitted, taking a free seat at the table and immediately putting her head in her hands.
"I'm deleting Tinder. I swear it this time. Here, take my phone. Delete it or hit it with a hammer."
This time the comeback was mine. "I deleted it last time you said that. You must have downloaded it again." It wasn't surprising. Since her son Josh had gone off to university, her empty nest had been fitted with a revolving door to accommodate an endless stream of no-strings hookups. Jess groaned.
"I did. I have no willpower. Hit me with the hammer, or the thumb, so I can't swipe. I swear I won't press charges. Happy Mother's Day, by the way. Did you all have a nice morning? And do you all feel loved and appreciated?"
Kate put a coffee in front of Jess, then said, "Yes," at exactly the same time that Carla and I chorused, "No." "Don't think you're getting away with not telling us about last night," I warned her, "because we'll come back to that. But did you know that these two think I've changed and need to find my old self again? Whatever that means." Jess raised her sunglasses and looked at the other two.
"Seriously? You had to do this today? When I've got a hangover, a bad back, and I'm still trying to remember the name of the guy I swore undying lust to last night?" My eyes widened in shock.
You know about this too? Is this some kind of conspiracy? I have not changed, I blustered, more than a little bit miffed. This was like one of those interventions you see on American reality shows featuring a soap star from 1984 who is trying to reclaim his moment in the spotlight despite having a grand-a-day crack habit. Not that we didn't have our own addictions, I thought, reaching for my third chocolate hobnob of the day. Kate obviously decided she'd be the best one to take this further, given that the other two had all the subtlety of a smack in the face. Honey, you were the funniest, wildest, craziest chick when you were younger. You fell in love every 6 months. You were fearless and you loved life. You lived for adventure and excitement, and you laughed more than anyone I've ever known. These days, well, you've pretty much lost your mojo. It isn't lost, I argued, before climbing right back down. It's just a bit misplaced. I still love life. That was true, especially if there was a Jerry Butler movie on the telly. Do you? Kate asked. Yes, I protested, a little too sharply. Jess winced at the pain of my shriek and let her sunglasses fall back down over her eyes.
And are you actually doing any of the things that you said you were going to do after you and Mark split up?
Ouch. That one stung. I'd had such big plans. I was going to figure out what I needed to do to reclaim my life on my own terms, and then I was going to go for it, to have adventures, to change my path, to stop just existing and start living. Trouble was, after the strength it took to actually make the break, I'd got stuck in the figuring out stage and given up like a marathon runner who collapses on a pile of foil blankets and Mars bars at the end of a race. No, but I'm going to. I am. I just need to get to the right place and... I stopped. Even to me it sounded weak.
I know it feels like we're ganging up on you here,
Jess said, before pausing to pour coffee down her throat.
But we'd be crap pals if we weren't honest with you. You're the one who said that you want to live your best life. So maybe it's time to get moving on that. Now that the boys are older, more independent, you've got time to focus on your own life again.
I gave up objecting. The only thing worse than brutally honest pals is brutally honest pals who are right. The last few years had been tough for so many reasons, and it would have been easy to keep plodding along with Mark. But I decided that I wanted more than a mediocre marriage with someone who'd lost all the funny, sexy ways that I'd fallen in love with. Mark and I were coasting, just existing, and I didn't want to do it anymore. But what had I done to change my life since he'd moved out? Nothing. Not a thing. No dates, no interest in anything or anyone new. I just wanted to give the boys a chance to get used to the new normal, I said in my defence. It was true, but I knew what was coming next, even as I said it.
Carly, the boys are fine,
Jess said.
By some miracle you've managed to breed 2 balanced, grounded guys, and they've totally adjusted to you and Mark's split.
I knew she was right, but I wasn't going to admit it in case the lump that had formed in my throat at the thought of my boys sent a sprinkler system to my eyes. Breaking up their family had been the hardest decision I'd ever made, and I put it off for a long time because the guilt was paralysing me. If I was being completely honest, what I didn't expect was that the same guilt would hang around after I'd made the break. And then there was the other guilt, the one that had nothing to do with my impending divorce, and everything to do with the person who was no longer in our lives. None of us had mentioned her, but we didn't have to. I felt the weight of losing Sarah every day. I felt the grief, but worse, I felt the responsibility. and that blocked all motivation to forge a new, exciting path for myself. If I dropped the fleecy jumper of denial I'd been hiding behind for the last year, it was obvious. I kept myself so busy with the boys that, despite all my talk and big plans, I'd avoided making any fundamental changes to my life.
You're the person that used to grab life by the whiskers.
I don't need to say that little confused nugget of observation came from Carol. Jess took over.
And now, don't get pissed off, but the truth is that these days, you're all talk and no action. You need an adventure.
I'm not getting Tinder, I railed, feeling my toes actually curl at the thought of having to re-enter the dating scene. I couldn't remember how to flirt. I had zero dating game, and there was no way I was letting a stranger see my wobbly bits without a dim light and a non-disclosure agreement. Jess laughed.
OK, a Tinder-free adventure. Have you thought about plenty of fish?
I threw a caramel wafer in her direction. I knew they were right, though. My days were just passing me by while I stood still in a swamp of habit. I'd work during the day, then spend every evening chauffeuring the boys to and from their sports activities. Then, when the weekends came, I'd chill out with a takeaway and a good movie in the company of whatever pal was free. Maybe it was time to stop procrastinating and get started on a future that included the core things that used to be my motivations for life. Excitement, love, laughs, and new experiences. I just wasn't sure I remembered how. Chapter 3. Later that afternoon. We are family, Sister Sledge. By early afternoon, the barbecue was fired up and the drinks were flowing. Over at the grill, Kate's husband Bruce, her son Cameron and her daughters Zoe and Tallulah, all wrapped up in chunky jumpers, jeans and boots, were bickering good-naturedly about something or other. Where had the years gone? Those kids were in their 20s, yet I still expected them to break out the lightsabers and challenge me to a death-defying battle to save the universe. Kate's garden was understated chic, as opposed to mine, which was an overgrown wilderness, thanks to my gardening skills, which extended to nothing more than a once-monthly run around it with a flymo, and the addition of a deck chair that collapsed if you sat down too quickly. In Kate's oasis, there was an outdoor cooking area, a circle of comfy chairs around a fire pit in the centre, 2 sumptuous green sun loungers, and a cedar wood dining table under a rich ebony pergola. As long as it wasn't raining, she had us out here winter, spring, summer and autumn, determined to make the most of the space and the fresh air. Thankfully, today was mild, and we were all wearing enough layers to keep the chills away. The outdoor Christmas dinner of 2012 had left us with 2 chest infections, 1 case of chilblains, and a cremated scarf caused by dancing too close to the fire pit. Kate was still in the kitchen, having shooed